If you read this and somehow forget the entire plot of the story, the one thing that you will remember is that Adam is tall and he's big. I don't know how necessary it was for this to be repeated the number of times that it was, but yeah, it's there. And sadly, that was not the only time where there was something cringy happening, and most of the time it was in public. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Stacy, and over here we do movie reviews, book reviews, and series reviews. If that sounds like your thing, make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and hit the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video goes up. I've been in the mood for adorable, heartwarming love stories featuring a variety of green flag characters, wholesome relationships, and a hint of spiciness. So I read 5 popular romance books that have been on my TBR list for quite some time. I've come across these books multiple times on BookTok and on BookTube, so I was excited to finally read them. So here are my thoughts on which books are worth your time and which are a bit of a hype. And with that, let's jump right into the first book. The first book is The Love Hypothesis by Hazelwood. Olive Smith is the heroine in this story, and she is a student at Stanford pursuing a degree in one of the sciences. So Olive went out on a date with this guy called Jeremy, but it didn't lead to anything. Both of them realized pretty quickly that there was no spark there. There are no hard feelings or any bad blood. They both just moved on with their lives. As time went by, Jeremy and a girl called Anne hung out a bit, and from their interactions, it was clear to everyone that they kind of liked each other. The thing is, Anne is Olive's best friend, and knowing that Olive once dated Jeremy, Anne won't let herself tolerate the idea of doing anything with Jeremy. Just like Anne, Olive is also a loyal best friend who wants the best for Anne. If Anne likes Jeremy, then Olive wants her to explore where that might lead to. In addition to that, she genuinely has no feelings for Jeremy. But no matter what she says, Olive is convinced that her best friend will never feel comfortable dating Jeremy unless she sees that Olive is in love and has happily moved on with somebody else. So she comes up with a wild plan to convince her best friend that she has moved on and is in love with someone else. While in school, a series of random events happen that lead to Olive kissing the first guy that she meets. This guy happens to be Adam Carlson, a professor at the university that she is in. In case you're wondering, no, this professor is not Olive's professor. He just happens to be a professor that works in the same school. Adam has a reputation as one of those professors that demand a lot from his students, and he has set high standards for himself and his students. The kind that you can find yourself strongly hating while in school, but when you graduate and time passes by, you do find yourself appreciating their commitment. With Adam, a lot of students hate him. Many will do anything to avoid ending up in his classes. And those who end up in his class are usually stuck complaining about the tons of work that they get, the harsh feedback they receive, the multiple times they have to repeat projects, or the fact that they are often brought to tears by the intensity of the entire experience. After being kissed without consent, you would expect him to file a sexual harassment lawsuit, but to Olive's surprise, he doesn't. He listens to her explanation as to why she randomly kissed him, and even goes as far as to agree to go along with Olive's plan to convince Anne that Olive is dating and she is happily in love with somebody else. As I say this out loud, it does sound unrealistic for a professor to agree to do any of this, but in the book and how it was explained, it does sound plausible. But in real life, I think this is a situation to just side-eye the professor and report the professor. Moving on from that, I think how this story progressed was so cute. Adam to me felt like such a green flag, and Olive is such a likable heroine. The only thing is, she does feel like the go-to main character in literally every romance book. The sweet, ray of sunshine kind of girl with a tragic backstory. It hasn't gotten dull for me yet, reading about a similar character across multiple books. But maybe it will if I'm noticing this character archetype across different books. However, in The Love Hypothesis, I loved them both, and I thought the fake dating trope and the grumpy sunshine trope were done really well. They both felt like very realistic characters, very human, and that made their story more endearing. For one, I like how Adam's backstory fits in really well with his personality. Without giving away too much, his personality felt very realistic in connection to how he grew up. It didn't feel like something that was embellished just to make him seem more interesting. The details that build up his personality all work together to create a wholesome character. Olive, on the other hand, her life experiences that inform the decisions that she makes all felt very human, out of lack of a better word. The more the story built on each character's personality, the more I found myself liking them as individuals and cheering them on. At one point, I did think, is it that hard to have a conversation with your best friend and tell her you have no feelings for this guy and you're okay with them dating? Anne is also an adult, so if she does decide not to date Jeremy even after Olive has said she's okay with everything, then that's her choice. But then again, if that happened, the entire story will not exist. Another thing is there were a lot of cringe-worthy moments that happened between Olive and Adam, and the worst thing is they were all happening in public. There was a time they were at some school talk with lots of students and faculty members, and somehow Olive ended up sitting on Adam's lap. And honestly, it felt very weird given the context that he is a professor and she is a student, and they're in public in a school setting. It didn't seem realistic. And if that actually happens, it will be very weird. And sadly, that was not the only time where there was something cringy happening, and most of the time it was in public. But I wouldn't say those moments put a damper on the reading experience. It's still a pretty wholesome and cute book that I did enjoy reading. There's one thing that I thought was overdone, and that is the number of times that the book mentions Adam's physique. If you read this and somehow forget the entire plot of the story, the one thing that you will remember is that Adam is tall and he's big. I don't know how necessary it was for this to be repeated the number of times that it was, but yeah, it's there. As a whole, I liked this book. It was lots of fun and I had a good time reading it. Book number 2 is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. In this story, we follow Lucy Hatton. Lucy is described as tiny, cute, and she has one of those vibrant personalities that just draw people in. If you compare Lucy and Olive, they just seem like two variations of the same thing. They're smart, fun to be around, ray of sunshine types of characters. For the main male character, we have Joshua Templeman. Joshua is also described as tall and big. He's also the serious type, very uptight and meticulous at everything that he does. So you would say this is another grumpy sunshine kind of trope, and it is also an enemies to lovers kind of trope. I wonder if there's a book where the girl is the grumpy one and the guy is the sunshine one, because that would be so interesting to read. If you guys have any recommendations of that kind of dynamic, make sure to list it in the comment section below. So Lucy and Josh work in the same publishing house. They're both passionate about what they do and also highly skilled. And they also kind of have the same roles in terms of how the hierarchy goes. This makes their relationship very competitive. They're always trying to one-up each other, which makes the perfect dynamic for an enemies to lovers trope. Their normal interactions with each other have always been passive-aggressive, but things go up a notch when it's announced that they'll be up for the same promotion. Once they find out that they have to compete against each other, it's game on, gloves off, and may the best man or woman win. Given how invested both Lucy and Josh are in their career, once the promotion was announced, the stakes were very high for both of them. While this was another read that I also enjoyed, I found some parts of the story to be a bit juvenile. For example, before the promotion was announced, they still had a passive-aggressive relationship, and once we found out why, I just didn't find the explanation to be plausible. However, after the inciting incident, which is that they're both up for the same promotion, their rivalry became believable. They were competitive in every sense of the word, which was okay, but again, where it became odd was when they would do things like have staring contests to see who blinks first. At that point, I was just rolling my eyes wondering, are we adults in a work setting or kids in kindergarten? And while some aspects felt juvenile, others were just plain amusing. Again, similar to the first book, I don't know if it was necessary as often as it was written, but Lucy is short and tiny and Josh is big and tall. This book also has a film adaptation which I watched after reading the book. I liked the book, but I found the movie to be all over the place. The movie felt like it had a lot of gaps in the storytelling and things were just not making sense. It all felt very rushed, and personally, I think the movie had a lot of room for improvement. It had great set and costume design and really nice videography, but that's just about it. To my surprise, it got a decent review on Rotten Tomatoes, so I guess it's not for everybody, but it's for a lot of people. I would say if you're a romance reader and you love the enemies to lovers trope and the grumpy sunshine trope, then this book is worth checking out. As for the movie, it wasn't great in my opinion, but it is worth checking out at least once. Next is The Spanish Love Deception. Catalina Martin desperately needs a date to her sister's wedding, especially since her little white lie about her American boyfriend has spiraled out of control. Now everyone she knows, including her ex and his fiancé, will be there and eager to meet him. She only has 4 weeks to find someone willing to cross the Atlantic and aid in her deception. New York to Spain is no short flight, and her raucous family won't be easy to fool. Enter Aaron Blackford, her tall, handsome, condescending colleague, who surprisingly offers to step in. She'd rather refuse. Never has there been a more aggravating, blood-boiling, and insufferable man. But Catalina is desperate, and as the wedding draws nearer, Aaron looks like her best option. And she begins to realize he might not be as terrible in the real world as he is at the office. While reading this, I constantly felt a strong disconnect and discomfort between the two main characters, and I couldn't figure out why. That is until I finished the book and had some time to think about it. And this is what it was. I did not like the main male character, who is also the main love interest. Just about everything he said felt so cringe, and it also felt like something a red flag would say. If he wasn't saying something that felt outright corny, it was something that felt too far ahead from where they currently were in their relationship. And the annoying part was Catalina was head over heels for him. This is another enemies to lovers kind of story, but in this case, I think they should have remained enemies. What the guy did to create the enemies dynamic was actually pretty bad, and how it was addressed for them to shift from enemies to lovers just didn't make sense for me. Before he could even address what he did and apologize for it, this girl was already in love. He could have gone on and not addressed anything that he did or even apologize, and they would have stayed together. Aaron didn't even do the bare minimum, and he still got the girl. So that tells you everything about the kind of standards Catalina has, and that is she has non-existent standards. When he does explain why he did what he did, I thought the entire reason was BS, and given that they work together, this girl should have gone to HR from the beginning. Another thing is he had zero personality. His backstory felt like a bunch of stories that individually were okay, but when put together to form a character, it didn't work. The different stories were not connected to each other, which made them feel like random things that didn't add up to make a believable character. As for Catalina, her character was okay. She should seriously get some standards when it comes to who she dates, but beyond that, she was a likable main character. The backstory she was given made sense in terms of explaining her view on life, how she reacts to certain things, and how she interacts with people. The steamy scenes were something else. After reading, I don't know about how many pages to get to the steamy scene, everything was just very, very cringe, and everything Aaron said just had me rolling my eyes. Based on my experience, this is one of the popular BookTok and BookTube books that I think are not worth the hype. Next is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. For this, I think I'm also going to look for a book blurb on Goodreads. One summer, two rivals, a plot twist they didn't see coming. Nora Stevens' life is books. She reads them all, and she is not that type of heroine. Not the plucky one, not the laid-back dream girl, and especially not the sweetheart. In fact, the only people Nora is a heroine for are her clients, for whom she lands enormous deals as a cutthroat literary agent, and her beloved little sister, Libby. which is why she agrees to go to Sunshine Falls, North Carolina for the month of August when Libby begs her for a sister's trip away. Libby has a vision of a small-town transformation for Nora, who she's convinced needs to become the heroine in her own story. But instead of picnics in meadows or run-ins with a handsome country doctor or a bulging four-armed bartender, Nora keeps bumping into Charlie Lastra, a bookish, brooding editor from back in the city. It would be a bit cute if not for the fact that they've met many times and it's never been cute. If Nora knows she's not an ideal heroine, Charlie knows he's nobody's hero. But as they are thrown together again and again, in a series of coincidences no editor worth their salt would allow, what they discover might just unravel the carefully crafted stories they've written about themselves. I loved this one, and I think I've read another Emily Henry book, which is People We Meet on Vacation, and that one was really nice too. People We Meet on Vacation was so fun to read, but it was also predictable from start to finish. Despite that, the way she writes her stories, as the reader you're still interested and you still enjoy reading each chapter, despite the ending that you saw coming a mile away. I didn't find Book Lovers to be predictable, but it did have the same fun vibes that seem to be in Emily Henry book. What I love about this is it's not just a romance book. The story goes beyond that and explores other aspects, which ends up giving you a wholesome reading experience. I expected this to be a fun, lightweight read. What I didn't expect are the nuggets of wisdom that you get from this book. I found the interactions, and not just with the two main characters, but also with other characters, to be so entertaining, with conversations that pushed the story forward and some pretty decent life lessons. I started reading this book for the romance, but I was equally engrossed in the other aspects of the story that were not directly related to the romance. There were family bonds that were explored, sibling relations, career choices, our individuality as humans, and so much more. All these aspects revealed something interesting about the human bonds that we can form, be it parent and child, sister and sister, brother and brother, co-worker versus co-worker, married couples, and so on. The main character, I liked her for the character that she was. The type of female character often portrayed in romance books, or at least the romance books that I've come across, is often the smart, sweet girl. And there's nothing wrong with that, but Nora over here is the farthest thing from that description. She is more like Miranda Priestly from The Devil Wears Prada, or maybe somebody like Jessica from Suits. A career-driven woman that is highly ambitious and will do just about anything to meet her goals. She might come across as cold and uncaring in her pursuit, and this often drives people away, especially love interests. Normally, this kind of character would be like the second female lead to the cute and sweet first female lead, but here it's the opposite. Nora's sister is the cute and sweet character, but in this story, she's here to show us what the typical nice girl looks like in contrast to her sister. I would definitely read this again. That's how much I enjoyed it. It was very insightful to read, and it was also just a fun time. And the last book that I read is It Starts With Us. Lily and her ex-husband Ryle have just settled into a civil co-parenting rhythm, but she suddenly bumps into her first love, Atlas. After nearly 2 years separated, she is elated that for once, time is on their side, and she immediately says yes when Atlas asks her on a date. But her excitement is quickly hampered by the knowledge that though they are no longer married, Ryle is still very much a part of her life. And Atlas Corrigan is the one man he will hate being in his ex-wife and daughter's life. I feel like Colleen Hoover went from being the sweetheart of the bookish world to being one of the most hated writers of all time. I don't know if it's deserved or not because I haven't read most of her work. This was actually my first Colleen Hoover book, and I'm on the love the author train. I genuinely enjoyed this story. I loved the writing style and the story itself, and I liked the ending. The only sucky part that I found out after I had finished reading this book is that it ends with us is the first book you're meant to read before you read this one. Focusing on this story though, all the characters felt fully fleshed out and they had their own distinct personality. And the fact that the story was told from two perspectives, the girl's perspective and the guy's perspective, it made everything so much more interesting. Most of the romance books I've read focus on the girl's perspective. It was refreshing to have both the boy and the girl's point of view in the story. Lily and Atlas were also great main characters that were easy to love and root for. Rai is also another character that I like how he was written. He is a dark character that is just the worst, and I think how he was portrayed was very realistic and very believable. His persistence in staying deluded, believing that he is the innocent one in all this, and his inability to see the effect of his actions felt very true and real to a person that would be twisted in this kind of way. I don't know if the other Colleen Hoover books are good or if they genuinely deserve all the hate that they get, but I found this particular read to be very enjoyable. It is my first Colleen Hoover book, and it is a Colleen Hoover book that I would recommend. On to the rating section, and this is how I will rate every book that I read. I found this book rating scale on Pinterest by a creator called Ashley Torres, and I liked how it summed things up, so we're gonna use that to rate this book. 1 star means it was unenjoyable and hard to finish. 2 stars means it was okay, I didn't enjoy it, but I didn't hate it. 3 stars means I like it, it was an enjoyable read, and good times were definitely had. 4 stars means it was really good, it gave me all the feels, it was beautifully written, and I would definitely recommend it. 5 stars means it was amazing, it's a new favorite, everyone needs to read it, I would definitely reread it, and I will be thinking about this for a while. Okay, book number 1, The Love Hypothesis. I'll give this 4 stars. It was a fun, well-written romance book about people in STEM. It was really good. It gave me all the feels. It was an enjoyable read, and good times were definitely had. The Hating Game gets 3 stars. This was another fun read, but compared to The Love Hypothesis, I think it deserves 3 stars. The Spanish Love Deception gets 2 stars. While I didn't like the main male character, I cannot say that this book was hard to finish. I knew that I was going to read the entire book, so 2 stars are more fitting. Book Lovers gets 5 stars. I really liked it, and for anyone looking for romance books, this is one that is worth checking out. It Starts With Us gets 3 stars. I liked it, it was an enjoyable read, and good times were definitely had. That is it for this video. If you made it this far and you haven't subscribed yet, you know you love the vibes, so go ahead and subscribe. Other than that, thank you for watching. If you're looking for more book recommendations, check out my other videos.
Fill me up with your touch, feel your breath in my lungs. To you,